Jerry, you were telling me a story earlier, and I know it's a popular story that once people have heard it, they're like, hey, Jerry, do that story. It's about baseball. And it's kind of what we're talking about today as far as when to talk, how much to say, and then when to be quiet, right? So why don't you tell that one? It's a baseball story, right?
Yeah, so this is backed by popular demand, this story.
Request.
So, hey, here's what happened. About a dozen years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, hey, I was in sales, and I was in HVAC sales, and I got a call to go see a customer, and in the notes it said, hey, this customer, his wife passed away about 6 months ago, so tread gently.
Yeah.
Right. So I go out to the home. I say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, sorry to hear about your wife. We had a nice little chat. I say, hey, here's what you can expect while I'm at your house today. I'm going to go take a look at your equipment. I'm going to take some pictures. I'm going to take some measurements. I'm going to come back in. I'll tell you just a few things I'd like to share with you, and then I'll give you some options, and you can choose which option is best for you. So I did all that, Eddie, and I came back in, and when I came back in, the man was sitting in a recliner.
Right, you've seen this picture.
Sitting in a recliner with a little table and another little recliner.
Right on. Yeah.
And across the room was like a little bookshelf with a little television, and he had the Atlanta Braves on. And he's watching a baseball game. And so I had a conversation with him about, hey, is it okay if I sit in that recliner? I'm sure it was your wife's, and is it okay? And it's just super delicate conversation.
Yeah.
He said, no, it's okay. Lots of people have sat in it. Just go ahead and sit down. So I sat down, and I shared a few things with him, and I said, hey, here's what I want to share with you is before I go over these options, and I got 3 options for you, like a best, better, good. And I got 3 financing options for you. And before I go over those, I want to remind you that we've been in business for 55 years, 24 hours a day. If you call us, a live person will answer the phone, thanks to Schedule Engine.
Woo!
And we give back to the community through the Children's Hospital downtown. And just let me know which option is best for you. And when I handed it to the man, he looked at the options, then he put the sheet down, and he turned and looked at the baseball game, Eddie. And when he did, I kind of glanced at my watch, and I turned to look at the baseball game too, and we sat there in silence for 14 minutes.
What?
14 minutes.
That's a lifetime.
Hey, now if you're a service manager and you're showing this episode in your meeting this morning or later this week, stop the tape right here. Take a few minutes. Let your team write down, what do you think that old man was thinking for 14 minutes? Better yet, sit in silence for about 2 minutes.
See how long that feels.
It feels like an eternity.
Oh my goodness.
So the question is, Eddie, what was that man thinking for 14 minutes?
I mean, do I need an air conditioner? Why'd they trade that player from the Braves? I wish I had a bigger TV. Who's this guy?
Who's this guy, right?
Yeah,
Do I like, trust, and know this bald guy sitting next to me?
Do I have the
money? Maybe he's thinking about what would my wife do?
Yeah.
Maybe he's thinking about, hey, should I pay cash? Should I do a credit card? Should I finance it? You know, I never really liked air conditioning. My wife liked air conditioning.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll sell the house. Maybe I'll put it on the credit card. I don't really know how much available limits on the credit card. Like, there's a lot of things that have been going through that man's head. And honestly, I really don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he was thinking that he was in sales for a long time and he knew not to talk. Like, this episode's about stop talking, right? I'm not really sure, but I know this. If I would have talked during those 14 minutes, I would not have talked him into it. I would have talked him out of it.
Wow. Say that again.
You don't talk people into it. You talk them out of it.
It's so profound because we think in our line of work, especially technical people, we're technical people doing technical things. We know a lot. We get a lot of schooling. And sometimes when we come up against that silence, we've been putting it together for 15 minutes. And so when we come into that silence, we've both done ride-alongs with technicians, and it's that number one thing where they just want to step into the silence because they're trying to help.
Maybe they don't understand. I should tell them more.
How can I put this in a way you would understand? And they go, and what I've noticed is people try and impress people into sales. When they don't get oh my goodness, thanks for coming, you've been so good. I can't believe we've lived without you this long. Please take our money. They go, well, maybe they just need to know a little bit more. And I was just at a class, so let me tell them everything I learned there.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. And it comes from a good place. but we need to allow our customers time. What is it that you say about those that know?
Those that know don't tell, and those that don't know tell. So
yeah.
That power of silence is really, really good. Like most of the time when that customer says, oh, wow, your price is a little high, then you try to justify it.
Well, let me tell you why. See, we've got this whole supply chain. We've got all these people back at the office when,
Insurance.
Licensed, bonded, and
Gas.
insured. Yeah.
Right.
It's expensive out there.
And people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Like that is the key point.
You bring up a good. There's something that happens before we're talking. It's about listening, right? And listening is an important part of communication. It's not just the talking, right?
Right. It's all about listening to understand, not listening to reply. Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
That was a big Stephen Covey thing, right?
I had a buddy. He was in sales and he went out and tell me if this sounds remotely familiar. He goes out and the customer's like, "Yeah, I'm interested in." We're in the Northeast. He's like, "I'm interested in an oil furnace." Great, good. And then the young guy goes on to talk about air conditioning because if we're doing the oil furnace, it makes perfect sense. He was just he was new recruit, freshly trained. It makes more sense to do a whole system. And he stayed there, and he called me afterwards, and he goes, "How'd it go?" He goes, "Well, yeah, he's not gonna." He told me I've given him a lot to think about. Let me tell you, if anybody ever tells you, like, "Well, thank you, you've given us a lot to think about," you have just done the classic info dump. They are no longer operating out of feelings. Now they're logic, and logic likes room to breathe. So they're like, "Hey, man, you've given us a lot to think about." I said, "Well, what did he say he wanted?" He goes, he said he wanted an oil furnace. I said, "Why didn't you just give him an oil furnace?" He goes, "Oh." And we do this, like we knock on the door, we've got our game plan, and we talk a lot about having our system. But the point of practicing at the Toolshed is so that you can forget that system and be really present with the customer, right? So what else we got? We've got significant others.
Yeah, so like, listen, if you're at home and your wife or spouse or significant other says, you just don't listen to me. And this happens, listen, we're not gurus. We don't wake up in the morning and our kids come down like, oh.
That's right. That's right.
We struggle with this too, but listen, if your significant other tells you you don't listen,
they're doing you a favor.
They're doing you a favor.
It's like, what is it? If one person tells you you have a tail, they're crazy. If two people tell you have a tail, it's a conspiracy. But if three people tell you, you better you should turn around and take a look, right? So it's really important. Ask for honest feedback from your team, whatever. But like a lot of time, we can get into this space because it's about us and what we need out of the call. And remember, we're here for the customer. It's not really about the equipment. It's about the people that live with the equipment. And guess what? It's not really about us. They could have called anybody. It's about them. And you talk about this ego thing. I know you do because I wrote it down. I've got a post-it of it right next to my computer.
Yeah, so your ego's not your amigo. So when somebody brings up an objection and you just verbally puke all over them with technical jargon about all the things you know about that one piece of equipment,
right,
all the things you know about that one part.
Yep.
That doesn't help. That's really just feeding your ego because you're telling them, look how smart I am.
Right.
In fact, I want to look so smart, I don't even care if you do it.
I don't even care if you understand what
I'm talking about. I just want to feel good when I'm walking down the driveway.
I'm right. And we talk about it. So let's give a couple of examples.
Okay.
Like how do you talk about things in a way that isn't egocentric, that's really about the customer, right? So a couple of classic examples. You want to go the whole
Let's
one?
practice.
Yeah.
So I'll be the customer. And so Eddie, I called you out here because my system's dead. And what's going on with it?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having us out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I have some options here. Option one is why I'm here today. Now, just to let you know, we did find what's wrong. What's wrong is you have a compressor. Now, a compressor is kind of like the heart of the system. Your heart is really important, pumps all the blood around. Your compressor pumps all that cooling juice around your house to make your house nice and cold. It's not working. And I've found out exactly what's wrong and what it'll take to fix it and all the costs involved. So do you have a second to go over that with me?
Okay.
Like, that's a real simple way of explaining what a compressor is. If you're using the word hermetic, just stop, pack up your tools, and leave. Okay? If you find yourself using the word recip, you're doing it wrong. What else?
Now, what about something simple like, and what if the customer says, well, Eddie, do I have to replace it?
Yeah. No.
And that's it, right?
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Like,
How about something simple like a capacitor? If you're an
so,
HVAC
yeah,
tech and you say, all right, what'd you find, Eddie?
So good news is, found out exactly what's wrong. What we have today is a capacitor. Now, a capacitor, it's kind of like a battery. Its job, you ever get on a bike and you have to get it started, and it's kind of tough to get started, but after it's going, it's fine. So capacitors help the heart of the system run better. Yours is bad, and it needs to be replaced. I have a bunch on the truck. I've got the pricing right here, and we can absolutely get you cooling in a little bit. As soon as that's up and running, I can take some other readings, and we can find out exactly what's going on with the rest of your system. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. And it's that simple. If you're doing any more than that, you're taking too long. Remember, it's not about impressing them. It's if people understood what you understand, they would do what you would do in the same situation. I'm reminded of the president. It's an apocryphal story. I think it was either Roosevelt, maybe Kennedy, and there's a story that he goes in and he tells all of his speechwriters, I want my speeches written at a 5th grade level. Now, he didn't do that because he thought everybody was dumb and he was talking down to people. He did it because every time we try and use words, languages, analogies that people don't understand, that's where confusion comes in, and a confused mind says no. A confused mind says no. So what we did was he wanted to communicate. He wanted to be the great communicator. So he wasn't worried that people thought he wasn't erudite and had a great vocabulary. No, he knew that if people knew what he did, he could bring them peace, calm, prosperity. And so he removed himself. His ego was his amigo.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was super aware. But anyway,
take us out.
Let's take it today. Here's what we want you to do. Today I want you to ask a question, give information, and then throw away the key to the old yapper. Give people time to think. You do this every day. They may have never done it at all. Remove yourself. You're there to serve them. So do that today.